Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Chiefs Digest Live with it's been that kind of day with Matt Derrick here, yours truly from Chiefs Digest. As usual, our good friend Nick Jacobs will be joining us a little bit later. I have not checked yet with him, even though we've spoken a couple of times today. I have not yet heard if he went to the grocery store earlier today. He's going right now or afterwards. So we'll find out from Nick when he gets here what's going on. But obviously, a lot to get to tonight with draft, obviously kicking off in just 48 hours, 7 o'clock Thursday night, and we're less than 48 hours away because, of course, yes, Bill, I showed up late. I was actually planning on showing up on time just to confuse everybody, and then I was having some leftovers for dinner and showed up late. So what do you know? Imagine me eating, and that's what causes me to be late. I might tone down my light here a little quick so I look a little bit less like Casper the Ghost. But obviously, a lot to talk about. Chris, I'm going to give you a shout out for the over under on when Mike Florio revisits his Andy Reid is retiring series. I figure Florio is going to go a whole different direction now. I mean, now that he can only really talk about Andy Reid possibly retiring after the 2029 season. I mean, it's not going to stop him probably from doing a few more posts every year about how Andy might retire anyway. But I figure he's going to branch out in some new directions. How about Patrick Mahomes is going to retire at 30 and join the PGA Tour? That seems like something that wouldn't be too hard to get him going. And since Florio himself was talking about how the sausage is made, I'm just gonna go ahead and tell a story here. It'll probably get me into trouble, but you know what? I don't care. I had to sit next to Florio during the Super Bowl. I was with the Kansas City contingent. So it was all of us from Kansas City. I was on the end of the Kansas City contingent. So I had my dear friend Adam Teicher on one side of me, and Florio was on the other side of me. So talk about your extremes right there. Tell you what, though, it frustrates me. I'm just going to do my little Florio rant and everything. And I'm just going to say this because there are so many people at NBC Sports that cover football who are absolutely wonderful. Shireen Williams is like one of the most class individuals in the game. Absolute Hall of Famer. She's been doing this for so long and is so good at what she does. And I told her, I mean, she was sitting, I think, on the other side of Mike. And so I got to talk to her a little bit during the game. She's an absolute legend. And I learned so much just watching her and being able to listen and overhear what she was talking about and doing and everything. And so I just absolutely love it. And there's so many people at NBC Sports who are so good at what they do and what they cover. But Mike is just drives me to drink. And his post today, if you read it, I think explains everything that you need to know about Mike Florio. So I will try to be a take the higher road and move forward, but hopefully I have written my last story refuting whether or not Andy Reid is retiring for at least 4 or 5 years. We'll see how long it has to be before the next one comes up. But yeah, that's a great one. Figure there'll probably be a lot of questions. There's at least some questions about the extensions. It's a pretty big deal for Andy Reid, Brett Veach, Mark Donovan. Obviously, didn't think there was a really big chance of any of them going anywhere, but the Chiefs do ink the deals to keep the triumvirate here for the rest of the decade. And, and the fact that, they get all three of these deals done at the same time takes me back, at Phoenix, I asked Clark Hunt about, even though his kind of, conscious memory only goes back to maybe the early 70s. I asked him, this stretch is the greatest, 6-year stretch in team history and franchise history, given, just where maybe the league was in the 60s. I mean, I think you could absolutely say that during the 70s and most of the 80s, this has been a much better stretch than that. The 90s were obviously some great success, and the Chiefs were a great success off the field. As far as making a lot of money, they were selling out Arrowhead. They were doing a lot of big things. And I asked him, and, he said he hadn't really thought about it in those terms, but he would say, absolutely. I mean, from the brand standpoint, from the building what the Chiefs have done, becoming a national franchise, and in addition to being an international franchise. And obviously, Mahomes is the fourth piece of this. He's been a big part of it. And Travis, I don't think you can doubt, obviously, especially the last few years, has been a big part of it as well. But Mark Donovan was the first piece that came in. He came over in 2009, and his job was to rebuild the business side of the Chiefs kingdom. And he really did that. I mean, he made Arrowhead a destination again, for concerts, which it hadn't been for a while. He came in as the renovations were going on, but really was able to supercharge the promotion of the renovations and interject some life back into the crowd in Arrowhead. They've had so many great hires. I mean, in addition to that, you talk about Robert Alberino in video department, who's got a couple of stints now with this team. At about that same time, Ted Cruz came in public relations. Up and down the lineup, I mean, they've had some incredible people. And honestly, I mean, they've had good hires even behind the scenes with people that you wouldn't even know of on the business side, and human resources, for crying out loud. They've got great people over there. So it's really been a team effort. I mean, it's not just the product on the field. It's been their ability to market it, and so they've all worked really well in conjunction. And I think it's just amazing to me that all three of them came from Philadelphia. I don't think that I mean, obviously, I think that their Philadelphia experience helped. I mean, I think Mark Donovan's Philadelphia experience helped, set him up for success in Kansas City. I think that Andy had reached a point where things just weren't working the way he wanted them to anymore in Philadelphia, and probably needed a reboot. Maybe Brett Veach could have become general manager, but Howie Roseman's there, so maybe there wasn't a place for him to grow up the way that he has. Maybe all three of them needed to be in Kansas City to see the success that they have. But right now, I mean, I would argue with you that the two biggest franchises in the NFL are the Dallas Cowboys and the Kansas City Chiefs. And that's just, as far as the money that they're making, their international exposure and their brand, Chiefs are a bigger deal than either of the New York teams. They're bigger than the Los Angeles teams. TV audiences, the only one that competes with the Chiefs are the Cowboys, and probably the TV people will tell you the Cowboys are still a bigger draw, but it's not by much. It's all three of them that have built that together. So to me, keeping that group together, and at least, through the end of the decade for sure, give it up to Clark Hunt. I mean, you got the potential to have this group together for 14 odd years or more. That's, to me, really amazing. I still don't have my my brain really is dead, people, today. I tell you what, it's been a long couple of days. We haven't even started the draft yet, but my hourglass for when I can let Nick Jacobs into the chat. I can see him laughing at me from the green room, but as soon as I get the thumbs up, I'll bring him in, and then we'll start with the Q&A for tonight. I've obviously have been guilty in the past of bringing Nick in too early, so I am not going to do that anymore. I will go ahead and start bringing up the first question, so at least I can start talking about it and get Nick's thoughts when he comes in here. What's your gut feeling? Do the Chiefs trade up for a player they have a first-round grade on? For example, Trent McDuffie. I mean, I'll go ahead and bring Nick in because it looks like he is ready. I mean, I don't. Not ready yet, Nick? I can hide you again. But yeah, I mean, yeah, my feeling is that yes. I mean, I think that the Chiefs would absolutely move up for a player that they've got a first round grade on. And the one thing to me that will be interesting to see is whether they would jump into the top 15 for a player that they really, really want. Because the one thing that the Chiefs have done, and McDuffie is a great example of taking a player that they've got a first round grade, top 15 grade on, top 20 grade on, and when that player drops below that and is now a tremendous value, jumping all over it. I mean, that's what made the McDuffie trade, so key. I mean, they obviously had.
Oh, you already brought me up.
I brought you in early, Nick. I apologize, but you were fine. You didn't do anything untoward. So, but yeah. I mean, I do. I mean, I think that they absolutely would jump up. That, like I said, my question is there a player who is a primo player who is maybe an uber first round grade? It's one of those, best in class. Because to me, I think there's 4 or 5 players that you could absolutely say these are difference makers in Kansas City in this and on this team. And I mean, I'll lay it out there. I mean, it's obviously the 3 top receivers in the draft. It's Joe Alt and Brock Bowers. And would I jump into the top 15 for any of those 5? I would. I would give up a pretty princely sum, and the princely sum to me is 2 first and a third. I mean, that was the price for Mahomes. Bowers is probably the question mark, because I think there's an argument to be heard, about whether you do that for a tight end. I get it. I think Nick and I kind of have the same argument, which is that don't think of him a tight end because he's a pass catcher, and in this Chiefs offense, frankly, you need a successor after Travis Kelce, but think that the Chiefs would run a lot of 12 personnel with Travis Kelce and Brock Bowers on the field, and I defy you to stop that. So I think I would. Now, would Brett Veach need to wait until I drop out past 15 before he jumps? I don't know. I mean, 1 and a 3 is a lot. I mean, Nick, I've pontificated enough here. What are your thoughts?
All right, let me read the question one more time. What's your good up for a player they have in the first round? Good. We already know where I've been on the bandwagon for a while now.
Joe Alt or bust
for quite some time. You risk it all for Joe Alt. You risk it all of it. You risk it for him. And the kicker of it is, like Matt said, you're gonna have to give up a first. You're giving up your 32nd this year to move up to that spot. You're giving up a first next year, and at minimum, you're giving up one of the thirds next year, and you may have to give up another pick. It's just a matter of, are you going to be able to get to 6 with the Giants? Because if that's your landing spot to get ahead of the Titans, then that's where that's going to be. Then at 7, the Titans probably aren't trading with you because they're either going to potentially take Joe Alt, or I think they're in the market for Malik Neighbors, because then Callahan could have his Jamar Chase down there to work in his offense and be able to utilize him in a similar way. So if I'm the Titans and I'm in their shoes, the fact you have the potential opportunity for both those guys, I wouldn't skip that opportunity. And then at 8, the Falcons, who knows? I mean, we'll see what they do, because then everybody keeps putting Dallas Turner to them, but I know some people are wondering if they're going to get a quarterback. Is there some other position group that they may end up trying to add some speed to their defense that they don't have? And then at 9, you got the Bears, and are the Bears going to take a receiver, or are they trying to trade down and get more picks? Which, if I'm in Ryan Poles' shoes, that's probably what to do in this draft, to surround Caleb Williams with some other players to build in the offense around him and have them grow together over the next 4 years. So if I'm in the Bears' shoes, I'm trying to trade down, and potentially having the Chiefs' 32nd pick would possibly allow you to do that, to where maybe there's a quarterback that somebody wants to take late, and they trade with the Bears, and they get an extra 3rd or 4th or something in that day 2 selection and early day 3 to be able to get what they want out of that. So for me with Bowers, I wouldn't do 2 firsts for Bowers personally. If you had to do a 1st and a 3rd and somewhere in the late teens, then I get that, and I wouldn't knock that. But if it's like a Malik Neighbors or a Marvin Harrison or Rome Odunze, you give up the 2 firsts in that, because those are the things that are going to make the biggest impact. The thing with Joe Alt is you get a franchise left tackle for the next decade that you don't have to pay $30 million a year for the first 3 to 4 years. It's already built in what he's going to get. You get the franchise left tackle, the guy who's got the technique down that you need. It's not a revolving door anymore. Or turnstile, whatever the heck you want to call it. Like this is the guy for pretty much the rest of Patrick Mahomes' career that's going to protect this side, a blind side. And that's one less question mark you have on a yearly basis in an ideal world if you make that trade. And then on top of that, or if it's one of those receivers, this may be the time where you find that wide receiver that can become the heir apparent to Travis Kelce, not necessarily from a tight end position, but from a number 1 option position, to where, because the reality is that the 2 biggest things the Chiefs are going to need, not only in this draft, but to continue the reign that they want to, you're honestly going to need a franchise left tackle, and you need to have an answer for who's going to take the baton from Travis Kelce to help maintain long-term production. Who's the next person that is going to be that individual with Mahomes, like Peyton Manning had to deal with, like Brady had to deal with? Or are you just going to try to have those question marks every year and have to really kind of navigate a lot of complicated things? And that's the end of my
That's the end. So your final rose obviously goes to Joe Alt, but who's your second rose? Who would be your next to last rose?
In terms of like a trade or just in general?
If you were going to get into the top 15.
Oh, I already named them. It's those four. It's those, either any of those three wide receivers or.
I'm under the philosophy, that Marvin Harrison Jr. is not dropping below probably 5. I can't imagine the Chargers passing on him. But
the expectation right now is either the Cardinals, the Chargers, or the Bears.
But here's the great thing, and I don't want to go too off on it because I know everybody's gonna have a lot of questions, and I don't want to have to go to rapid fire, quick fire.
Oh, just so you know, I only got an hour tonight.
Lightning round.
To prospects afterwards, so you got 1 hour.
But my theory, of course, about the 8 teams who don't know what they're doing in the NFL draft, the great thing is that you got 2 of them at 6 and 7. I mean, you cannot predict what New York Giants and the Tennessee Titans are going to do, because I'm not even sure they know what they're going to do. I mean, the Titans have already demonstrated, their craziness, because obviously I guess think that, well, one, they fired a very good coach. I mean, I think Mike Vrabel's going to win a Super Bowl one day, one of those years that Patrick Mahomes doesn't, or, and maybe he'll win it in 2030 when he replaces Andy Reid. But he's a very good coach. Maybe Callahan's a good coach. I don't know. But I mean, the things and the spending the money they did on Calvin Ridley, I mean, there's just things that the Tennessee Titans do that absolutely baffle me. And I just do not have a lot of faith in Rand Carthon as a general manager. So I don't know what he's going to do. I mean, the right thing to do would probably be, the right thing to do is draft his best available player. Well, just available player at his spot will probably be Joe Alt. If he doesn't take Joe Alt, I mean, I could absolutely see him doing something else crazy. So yeah. And I mean, you kind of named it. I mean, I think that the Chiefs could absolutely get into, I don't know about 8, but 9 and 10. I mean, certainly 9 at the Bears, I think, is an absolutely gettable pick. If they want the pick of anything that they want, 6 is where you have to go. Mm-hmm. The Chargers will have probably taken their player. I am guessing at this point that with a trade, quarterbacks are going to go in the top 4. And then it's the Chargers who, will essentially, for their feeling, get the first pick of the draft. So then they can take the best available player, which I believe will be a receiver. We'll see which one they go for. But if you're the Chiefs, what you're really hoping for is for the Giants and the Titans to blow it. You want them to just make terrible, terrible picks, because if they do, it just means that a really good receiver and a really great, I think, offensive tackle are going to be available at a better place at a lower price than you expected. But your mileage may vary.
Can you go to 721, Scott's question?
I sure can,
because it ties into this one.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Because Scott's asking, do they really need a franchise left tackle? They've won 3 Super Bowls with an average left tackle at best.
So part of what they've won it on is Patrick Mahomes' youth, the training he does with Bobby, and his athletic ability at this age. The reality of it is, if you want to preserve that ability for as long as you can, and if you want to make sure that he can stay upright and stay safe the entire time and feel confident as a quarterback that he's not going to have to maneuver or continue to drop back a little bit more or do those type of things, this is why you make the play for the franchise tackle, because you're investing in 15 for quite some time. So yes, they've won 3 Super Bowls with Eric Fisher, with Orlando Brown, and with Donovan Smith. But if you remember the Orlando Brown thing, that was based on pure will with Patrick Mahomes, because of the fact that he was playing on one ankle because Orlando's guy got around him and did the hip tackle to him. Then if you take last year, yes, the Chiefs won the Super Bowl, Donovan Smith at left tackle and part of Wanya Morris at left tackle, but it was that Chiefs defense, like Michael Lombardi said on 41 as a mic with us, that Chiefs defense is what helped carry that team, so they didn't have to score 30 a game. So at the end of the day, Scott, I understand what you're saying, but I'm saying if you want to limit Patrick's career, you keep having questions at left tackle because there's going to be a day where he's not going to be able to move around the pocket and he's going to be a statue down the road. You hope that doesn't come, but you want to do everything you can to increase that longevity of his career so he can stay that athletic as long as possible.
Complete cosign here. Couldn't agree more. I mean, no, you absolutely nailed it. I completely agree, Scott. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say it's necessarily luck, but and obviously the Chiefs won Super Bowl with paying if you want to, hey, I'll grant you the assessment that Eric Fisher's a average left tackle. They also were paying a Pro Bowl right tackle on the other side. Between the two of them, they were paying them both a lot of money, top of the market left tackle money. They lost the Super Bowl, honestly, because both those guys were hurt. I mean, that's the reality of it. I mean, you got it. Sometimes you have to have depth, and that team didn't have enough depth to be able to overcome those injuries. They could have had a fourth Super Bowl, maybe. And you're right. I mean, you're not always going to have a Donovan Smith fall into your lap. I mean, if the Chiefs had not had that last year, maybe they don't win the Super Bowl last year. They were pretty fortunate that Donovan Smith was just available there, because as of May 1st, Jawan Taylor was going to be their left tackle until Donovan Smith came in. I mean, that changed the whole thing around. And you're like, Orlando Brown. But once again, you gave up a first-round pick for Orlando Brown. Now, I get, Brett Veach's argument will be that, hey, it was basically netted a second. Okay, you gave up a second round for 2 years of Orlando Brown. That's a lot. I mean, you're expecting out of a second-round pick, you're expecting 4 years out of a second-round pick. And maybe 5 if you franchise tag them. You got 2 years out of Orlando Brown. That's it. So, to me, I mean, if you're talking about using if you feel like Joe Alt is what we feel like he is, which is a decade-long player, maybe more. But if you're talking about getting that out of 2 first-round picks, and you're telling me that you're going to get a guy who's going to play for 10 years, and you feel like is going to be a Pro Bowl player for that length, that's a slam dunk pick. I mean, and to me, that's what. I mean, hey, injuries can happen and everything, but there's one position that busts the least in the first round is tackle. That's just, they just don't bust very often. Even when they do, they're usually fairly productive players. So not that it's saying that it can't happen, but I have now absolutely pontificated too long about the left tackle situation, Nick. So
do you want to surprise them with who the guest is tomorrow while they're
here? I'm going to let you do it.
No, you do it.
No, because this is all your hard work, man.
But no, you go ahead and do it since they were members that were willing to come here on the Q&A. Go ahead and tell them.
Well, tomorrow on the surprise feed on the 41 is the Mic podcast, you will get to hear Nick and I interviewing Joe Alt, the left tackle from Notre Dame, who is going to be, I have no doubt, the first offensive lineman off the board on Thursday night. We have already recorded it. I can tell you it is a fantastic conversation. You will fall in love with Joe Alt and absolutely hope that he somehow falls into a situation that the Chiefs can get him, because I tell you what, from that conversation, he's a better dude off the field than he is on, and he is a darn good dude on the field.
Incredibly humble guy. Very, very appreciative of all that his dad's taught him. And for those that don't know, John Alt's his dad, the left tackle that played for the Chiefs. He's in the Hall of Honor. So yeah, he just talked about that and where he's going to be on draft night, and a whole bunch of other things with us for 13 minutes on the record, and then a couple minutes off of it. So yeah, he I think a lot of Chiefs fans are going to be really big fans of him after they see this interview.
Yeah, a lot of great things to say about the Chiefs and the franchise, which I think is remarkable because he never lived in Kansas City. I mean, he grew up in was born in Minnesota, grew up there. He's not a local kid, but he's got a great appreciation for his dad's career and some good stories about watching his dad on YouTube. So, a lot of fun. I think you will enjoy getting to know him, and you will absolutely hope that he lands up in Kansas City, which I know it's going to be difficult, but we'll see. Scott also asking for me, I guess it's for me as a Mizzou guy, Nick. I mean, you're going to be able to answer too, but how many Mizzou players do you think would be a good fit with the Chiefs? I tell you what, I mean, there's a few, and there's a challenge because I think one of the best fits is going to be the one that's going to be the hardest to get to Kansas City, and that's Darius Robinson. He would absolutely be a perfect fit for Joe Cullen. There's no doubt about it. And Joe Cullen, Steve Spagnuolo, Andy Reid have all met with him. He's I mean, just his skill set as being flexibility to play inside and outside, his length, everything. He's got a fire in him. He plays with an attitude. All of that, I think, would absolutely, as Nick and I, bring up the coach speak many times, the energy giver. Darius Robinson's one of those guys, so I think he'd be a perfect fit. The problem is going to be, I don't know that you can really afford to take him at 32 if you stay there, and don't think he's going to be available at 64. So, what do you do? And if you're the Chiefs, is that the top need that you tackle in the first or second round? It's really tough. So I have a hard time envisioning him falling to the Chiefs and getting to a spot where they could use him. But I think he'd be a great fit. Ennis Rakestraw, I think, is going to be a great, corner in this league. And if he were playing with Dave Merritt, I think he could absolutely fit him incredibly into the Chiefs scheme. I mean, Ennis is just a really good player. He's always around the ball. Been really impressed with him during his career. Hey, I like Cody Schrader too, and in the right spot, I'd take him. He's probably in that sixth round category though, and the Chiefs without a sixth round pick, I can't justify them taking him in the fifth. I have not taken Cody as much as I want to in any of my mock drafts. I haven't, because I just can't pull the trigger on him in the fifth for a running back. And I've been able to, a couple of my drafts, get Will Shipley, who I think is also a really good fit. Schrader, isn't a guy that I necessarily see being a full-time back, but he could definitely be a third down back in this league and do some of the things that Jerick McKinnon did. I like Tyron Hopper as a late round guy too. Once again, I'm not sure about the timing, but I just like him as a special teams player and being a backup guy. It's not a huge need for the Chiefs though. And, sneaky one, Javon Foster. I mean, Chiefs need offensive line help. That's a guy who's pretty versatile. Once again, it's, position about where you could get him, but I think he would fit with what Andy Heck likes to do. I think they could teach him up. Mizzou's got some good kids coming out, and I mean, hey, they've really had a good team this year, and I really obviously been impressed with everything that Drink has done over there. But those are the ones that stand out to me. I don't know if there's anybody Nick on your list. I know you may not watch Mizzou football as much as I do. So,
well, Matt, you'll be surprised to know, as being a sports producer in Kansas City, you end up watching all three teams.
But you have to watch them all. Yeah, you gotta, even when they're on at the same time, you got to watch them all at the same time sometimes.
Yeah, and if you see behind me, we got enough TVs to get it done. So, yeah, you already named all three of them that I think could fit in the Chiefs scheme. I mean, Robinson could be versatile as a potential 3-tech, maybe a 5-tech. Just depends on what type of development he would have if they needed him. Rakeshaw, the corner from Mizzou, he's got a physical brand at corner that I think could fit really well into the Chiefs scheme if they were able to get him. I don't know. I mean, I think he's going day 2, second, third round, so I'm not sure if the Chiefs are going to be able to get that done. And then obviously, like you said, Cody Schrader, he's got the athletic ability, he's got the vision to where he could run and fit in their Chiefs scheme. So, I mean, all three of those guys I think could be contributors with the Chiefs if they were somebody that were available at the time in terms of what their value is. Because Schrader, I think you're looking 6th round, maybe 7th round range. With, like we said, with Rakeshaw, you're looking 2 to 3 range. Derrick Robinson, you're looking late 1st to 2nd round, probably going to be gone before 64.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and that's what I think is just going to be pick on a tough one. A couple of them, it's just going to be tough to see if they fall to a spot where the Chiefs could actually get their hands on them without having to move up. And I like him, but and I might move up for Darius Robinson just because I think he's a great fit. But again, I mean, Chiefs have needs at tackle and wide receiver. So is defensive end enough of a luxury that they can afford to have on a second round pick? I don't know, but then again, I mean, if they're in a situation where they don't get what they want and they trade down out of the first round and into the early part of the second and pick up some additional draft picks, well, I might actually start thinking about Darius Robinson, because he and Rakestraw might be really good value there in the late 30s, early 40s if they're still on the board. So always love to see our members in here. So thank you, Brenda, Matt. Love to see you in the conversation. Appreciate it. Hey, we'll take other questions, Nick. Des the Gem, non-draft question. Who do you think is going to be the opening night opponent? We have talked about this before, so I won't spend a ton of time on it. Nick loves repeat questions, by the way, so that's why he's shaking his head at me right now.
I'm not shaking my head. I'm just This is every Q&A now.
I know, but everybody wants to know. We're going to find out, in what, 3 or 4 weeks. So we won't get that question anymore after that.
I don't know. We probably still will. Somebody will make it a tradition. Just like
who will the Chiefs play in 2025 after winning the Super Bowl? Yeah. I'm putting my money right now. I've got Tampa Bay and Houston as dead even favorites. I think those are the two marquee games. I'm leaning towards Tampa Bay because I think that's the direction the NFL is going, is to try and find compelling interconference matchups that don't have a whole lot of impact on the playoff race. And Tampa Bay, Baker Mayfield, Patrick Mahomes, good storyline. Both of them being at Texas Tech together for a year. So I think that's compelling. But TV wise, the best game, ratings wise, that I think that at least that the other networks aren't going to compete for, because CBS is going to absolutely hold on to some of those games. And there's games that ESPN will want, and Monday Night Football, Sunday Night Football. So once you get through with those, Houston's a game that the NFL wants. So I think it'll be one of those two. Do you have anything to say, or Nick, or are you just going to lean on your previous statements?
Nailed it.
Nailed it. Hey, Quiggs brings another tackle into the conversation. Patrick Paul, round 1. Not for me, round 1, but if the Chiefs don't go tackle in the first round, they go receiver. I think he's absolutely in the conversation late in the second.
Yeah, I think I got a feeling he's either going to go high second or in second in general. I know that report came out today that, some teams are looking at him late in the first round. Got a pretty good idea where that one came from.
And that's an angle that we, probably we're talking about for a minute, Nick, is that, after the top few tackles, there's a bit of a drop off. You can get some tackles later in the second round, but there's going to be some guys that, they're probably not day one necessarily starting tackles. They might need a little bit of seasoning to be the players that you want them to be, right?
Yeah, after the top 3, they're all gonna be projects, and even 2 and 3 are gonna have some project parts to their game. And Joe Alt's gonna have some things that he's gonna have to work on, once he gets to the NFL level. But from you and I getting to interview him, he's got the desire, the drive, and the recognition for it to get to that point. So, after the top 3, I know there's projected there may be 8 offensive tackles taken tomorrow night, or not tomorrow night, on Thursday night in the first round. So, the run on tackles is there's probably going to be a run on quarterbacks and a run on tackles that's going to end up being almost half of that draft. And then we'll see how aggressively people get about receiver, and if some of those guys who are projected second round end up sneaking in the first, or what may happen there.
Yeah, but depending on how that falls, and once again, especially once you start getting to that pocket in the second round and everything, there's a lot of kind of conjecture and leeway back and forth. But the Chiefs went receiver in the first round, which I have no problem with. If they were able to circle back, and if there was a Roger Rosengarten available late in the second, and honestly, there's people who think Roger Rosengarten might go in the first. And if you haven't listened, we talked to Jim Nagy at the Senior Bowl. Jim thinks, hey, he should be in the conversation at 32 for the Chiefs to tackle. Kieran Amagaji, Knicks guy, would be great, available late in the second.
I'm proud of you on that one, dude. Nailed that one.
There you go. I've been working on that one. I think he would be a great pick. Patrick Paul, I think those 3, I think, would be the ideal that you're talking about late in the second, or at 64 if they fall to that direction. But, you're waiting for a lot of help. So, Paul, for me, I think that would be, hey, once again, like Nick said, there could be a run on tackles, and maybe that's what's happening. And if that's what happens, and I'm the Chiefs, I probably go the other direction. And now I'm looking at somewhere else where, hey, wait a minute, you're telling me that there's a top end corner that's available, or there's a top end. Good grief, if Patrick Paul goes in the first round, Brian Thomas is probably available for a pretty cheap, if not available, at 32. So I would be at that point. There wouldn't be a whole lot of value at tackle at that spot for 32 for me. So I'd look somewhere else. But once again, your mileage always may vary. Matt, one of our members, appreciate it. How long is the first round of the draft going to be on Thursday? Trying to watch the Nuggets game and wondering if I need to 2-screen it. Nick, you get to go on with TV right afterwards, so it's usually right about 10:30, right?
In an ideal world, yes.
In an ideal world, it can be earlier, it can be later.
Because I believe Felix and Uzama, when they picked him somewhere between 1038 to 1042, in that range, because we were live at the time, and I had to have my YouTube TV on my cell phone up so I could see it while I'm trying to navigate a show at the same time. So yeah, it all depends on how efficiently and how effective people are in terms of the teams that make their pick. And but NFL definitely wants it to go to minimum 10-15, so it's going to do that. It's just how much of the pageantry are they going to have in there versus like, hey, you got to pick, go, got to pick, go, got to pick, go.
Yeah. Well, it helps the teams make their picks, and it helps that there's not a lot of trades. Trades tend to drag it out too. So we'll see how that goes. Let's roll. Any chances you get some more Lombardi guest appearances? Would love to have them, because if you have not heard it, you need to go check out both the interviews we've had the last couple of days. Mike Lombardi on Monday and Jim Nagy today. Both of them were fantastic with us, and would love to have them both back. I don't think we offended them, Nick, so I would imagine both of them would be glad to come back. But I would absolutely love it, because they were a great guest.
Yeah, here's what I'll say. They were kind enough to do that for free for us. So, I'm not going to try to go to that well every single week and be like, hey, you want to come and do a show? So, but would we love to have them on again? You bet.
Yeah.
Yes,
special times. We want to hit them up on the special times and when it's appropriate. So can't abuse their kindness and everything. So but truly appreciate both coming on the show.
And for people that don't know, like for example, and Matt didn't even know this, I haven't even told him. I reached out to Kingsley's people earlier today, see if we can get a Zoom and add another bonus podcast. And he's going to be out of touch for the next couple of days as he gets ready for the draft. So But for people that don't know, Matt and I actually reached out to a lot of prospects that fit the Chiefs at wide receiver and tackle and a handful of other spots, and tried to get some of them on, even Xavier Worthy. We're trying to see if we can get him and try to have a whole bunch of these bonus episodes. But this is the three that we have between Lombardi and Nagy and Joe Alt that you'll see tomorrow. Those were 3-4 weeks worth of work trying to get that situated so that we could get that to happen, especially around draft week, and get that done. So it takes a little bit more effort than you realize when you're the one booking your own guest. You don't have a staff like Pat McAfee. And you're not national where they know the brand instantly, or the Rich Eisen show where they know the brand instantly.
Nick has to do double duties here, because he's not only a host, but he's also basically the producer. So
don't forget editor.
And don't forget editor. I can't forget that. No, Alan, due to the deep wide receiver class, will we see a ripple effect after June 1st with an influx of veteran wide receivers getting cut and hitting the market before training camp? What do you think, Nick? I'll let you start with that one.
I'm just trying to get through the draft right now. I'm sorry. I'm just trying to get through the draft. I mean, we'll see who gets taken where, and then you can start to put those puzzle pieces together. But I mean, until you know where receivers are going to land, you're like, they got too many quality receivers there. So it's not going to hit you over the head right now in terms of what may or may not happen.
Yeah, and I have not scanned ahead yet to see if it pops up. I'm sure that there's probably be the chances of a question popping up to see if the Chiefs would be interested in Brandon Ayuk. And my inclination would be to say no. I don't think that they are, because again, if they were interested in Brandon Ayuk, I don't think they would have let Tyreek Hill go in the first place. So if you trade for Ayuk, you're going to have to give him a ton of money, and Chiefs made it pretty clear that's not their plan at wide receiver, is to pay somebody $20+ million. And that to me also brings in, an interesting thing, because we're talking about the Titans. Hey, if the Titans take a wide receiver, suddenly they've signed Calvin Ridley. They've drafted a first-round receiver. If they do that, if I'm DeAndre Hopkins, am I saying, wait a minute, do I want to be, the number 3 receiver on a collection of stiffs? I don't know. So there could be some situations. I mean, I don't think, hey, if there were going to be 8 wide receivers taken in the first round, I don't think you would see 8 veterans all of a sudden on the market. You might see 1 or 2. So I don't think it would be but I don't think it would be a ton of receivers. And if some receivers did, it's probably not the number 1 receiver. It's more like the number 6 receiver that's suddenly available. Let's see. Sammy, if tackle is handled early, thoughts on non-first round wide receivers that fit best. I mean, that's the thing, Nick. I mean, even if there is a pretty good run on receivers in the first round, there's going to be good receivers available elsewhere in the draft.
Yeah, that's why I fear the Chiefs. You get the tackle thing knocked out if you need to, but you do have enough. You need to get the tackle thing knocked out in probably the first or second round and have that locked in if that's what you're after. And then you use receiver for at least the other spot, if not both spots, depending how you feel on interior line and defensive line. So, I mean, yeah, in terms of non-first round guys, I mean, Jalen Polk is obviously a guy that I think is a great fit. And then Lad McConkey's probably going to go in the first round, but if he doesn't and he slides somehow because of medicals, then that's another great fit. And he also happens to share the same agent as Patrick Mahomes. And then, Jalen McMillan obviously would fit. Javon Baker, somebody I'm really curious to see where he's going to end up. And if it's going to be second round, third round, where he goes and what system he gets put in. Malik Washington's another talented receiver that I selfishly would love to see in a Chiefs uniform. Obviously, Ricky Parcell that Jim Nagy talked about, Nagy talked about on the 41 is the Mike podcast that got put out at noon today. That's another one that he was kind of excited to see if Mahomes was able to throw to Lad McConkey or Ricky, what that would end up looking like. So, I mean, there's plenty, and I don't want you to think that this is what I'm thinking of off the top of my head. But, I mean, there's plenty of wide receivers. There's honestly a ton that can still be had in the second and third round. But I would say by pick 90, if you haven't by 95, you better get it done there. Otherwise, at that point, you're honestly going with more specialty guys that are going to be slot receivers. So that may be like an Anthony Gould. That may be like a Jaquan Jackson from Tulane. That might be Thrash from Louisville or one of those type of receivers. But yeah, I mean, I'm just saying this is a draft. If you can get two receivers, I would be ecstatic.
That's the crazy thing is that, we're talking about guys now that like Anthony Gould, the Chiefs had in for a visit. So certainly somebody that they're interested in. I mean, that would be a good pick. And there's people who've got him as like a, fourth, fifth round pick. I mean, I'm big on Luke McCaffrey. I know you're not as big as I am, but I'm just betting on the genes and I'm betting on some of the skill set that he's got that he can improve the things that he needs to. And some of the things that he's got as a skill set wise are things you can't teach, especially catching the football and holding on to it, which sometimes things that this team has problems with. But I'm glad you brought up Ricky Pearsall because that's a guy like it's mentioned that Nagy mentioned. Roman Wilson's a guy too that seems like just absolutely falls through the cracks sometimes, but that would be a good get. Polk and Leggett and Xavier Leggett. I mean, some people have him as going in the first round. Some have them going at 64. I mean, and be available there. Jalen McMillan gets completely overlooked sometimes. I mean, that's the crazy thing. I mean, and remember, Puka Nacua went in the fifth round last year, Nick. So clearly in the NFL, you can get receiver talent. And this year of all years, you should be able to get receiver talent in almost any round through four. And after that, like Brett Veach said, I mean, it's going to get a little iffy. There's probably going to be more of a run. So that's what I'm expecting is that if you're going to get a receiver, it probably needs to be in the first four rounds. Maybe there'll be a couple of still sticking around in the fifth. But after that, there is a little bit of a drop off. Well, Mark wants Lad McConkey, who we really haven't talked about a lot, but Lad's been a popular pick to the Chiefs, and you mentioned the medicals and everything.
He was on the mock draft that we did on Sunday for me. So
there you go.
I get it if they take him. I'm not going to be upset about it, and that's the thing. Like even though, like you said Luke McCaffrey and everything, I'm not going to be upset. Whatever receiver they get, as long as they're athletic and they can change direction and catch the football, I'm going to be happy because I want to see a better wide receiving group, no matter what their name is.
Don really enjoyed the show with Jim Nagy, so I wanted to give a shout out to that once again. Thanks, Don. Appreciate the kind words. That was a fun interview. He was absolutely great. And Chiefs will take at least one player from the Senior Bowl. I have no doubt about that. I will bank on that. Pretty good chance they're going to take more than one because they usually do. But as I said on Twitter, Nick earlier, your money back on listening to the podcast if we did not mention a Chiefs draft pick because the Chiefs are absolutely taking somebody that Jim Nagy mentioned.
And you know why you can quote unquote give them their money back?
Because it's free.
Because you get it all for free to begin with. And that's my high horse thing for tonight. My rant, if you will. Whenever people complain about something that didn't happen in the show, or this question didn't get answered, or this thing wasn't thought of, you're getting this for free. Like, this is free.
However, if you become a member, you are then entitled to complain, and you will definitely get your questions answered. So, and that's the great benefit too. By me, I mean, I can't guarantee that, and you can complain to me. You can't complain to Nick, but you can complain to me. And I can't guarantee you that Nick will answer your question if it's a question that we've already answered, but I will if you're a member. So remember that.
Oh, but yes, the distinction here is this is the statement and specifically related to me, not being a member of Chiefs Digest.
I have a completely, totally different set of standards. Yeah. But once again, Nick is out here out of the kindness of his heart. So Mark's other question and point, I think we're all in agreement that the Chiefs need another running back. How high are you willing to take one? I mean, I've taken Will Shipley in 2 different mock drafts in the 4th round because I like Will Shipley. But I know Brooks is the number 1 running back on the most consensus boards, and there's obviously questions about him from a medical standpoint and where he might go as far as just one, over running backs being devalued as they are, and him having the medicals on top of that. So where Brooks is going to go is a complete and total mystery to me. I mean, how do you feel about it, Nick?
Oh, I'm hoping he goes to the Chiefs. That's the one. That's the thing. I'm curious to watch on day 2. Does he still go in the high 40s like you would have before the injury? Does he go in round 3? Does he slide to round 4 because of the ACL? Where does he end up? And I mean, I know the Chiefs brought him in for an official visit, probably so they can see where he's at in that situation, medical wise, and get the answers they need to. So you are taking a little bit of a risk to where if you get him and he's not the same player he was before the ACL, or it takes longer for him to get back to 100% from the ACL tear, that you're not going to get the most bang for your buck on that pick, at least in year 1 of his contract. But I'm telling you, man, the vision that guy's got, the acceleration, the speed he's got, if he gets back to 100%, he's exactly the running back that would terrify teams, paired with Patrick Mahomes and whatever they end up doing with their wide receiving group for the next 4 or 5 years. Like, it just extends a healthy him extends your window pretty significantly.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, I'm spending a lot of the Chiefs' 3rd round picks because obviously I want to trade up for Joe Alt, and I'm going to include a 3rd round pick in that deal. Mm-hmm. 3rd round's probably where you need to get Brooks. I mean, and if you're the Chiefs, I mean, you're picking where you are. You might even have to get him at 64 if you wanted him. But then again, I mean, this is where, Brett Veach could maneuver the board. I mean, if Brooks is a guy that you like, do you trade down from 64 and try to get some extra picks? Do you move up in some places? And I've taken a different mindset after talking to Jim Nagy, Nick. I don't know about you, but normally I say, hey, those 7th round picks actually have some value for the Chiefs, because especially in their current situation, it's more difficult to get undrafted free agents, because undrafted free agents want to make teams, and they don't necessarily want to come to Kansas City when they got to try and make a Super Bowl team when they could make a team somewhere else. And sometimes, I mean, that's why, like Trey Smith, we talked about it. Chiefs had to draft Trey Smith because they couldn't sign him. There are examples of that. So sometimes 7th round picks are nice if you want to be able to get an undrafted free agent that you can't get any other way. But in this case, between what Jim Nagy said and what Brett Veach said on Friday, Nick, I'm okay if the Chiefs finished up by the 4th round. If they just moved all their 5th and their 2 5ths and their 7th to move up and maneuver the board and get some things done in the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, I'm okay with that.
I think a lot of people would be bummed about that day 3 portion of it, but depending on who they're able to get with those first 4 picks, I know it may not be a bad thing. Let's just put it that way.
That is true. I think, in summary, I think 3rd round for Brooks is about as high as I would go for a running back. Otherwise, like I said, if there's a good player you think is a good fit, I think Shipley's a good fit. I would do that in the 4th. Cody Schrader, like I said earlier, I mean, I like him. I like him in the sixth, but the Chiefs don't have a sixth, so that might be a little bit difficult. Tell you what, though, Frank Gore, if he's an undrafted free agent, I'd take a shot on Frank Gore Jr. And once again, I'm always going to bet on jeans, Nick.
Yeah, I I see it over here in the question. So, or not necessarily, it's not necessarily a question, but a statement in terms of I've seen Sweat mentioned to the Chiefs multiple times, and I think he came in for an official visit recently. Maybe I don't remember. I don't remember if he had an official visit or not. I'll have to look up in a minute. But thing I want to say about Sweat is he's just as big as Danny Shelton was, and Danny Shelton never saw the field. So I mean, there's speculation that Sweat was anywhere between 350 to 380 weight wise, and that's why he didn't weigh at the combine and maybe even the Senior Bowl. I can't remember, but so I get he would be a one tech, but I mean, there's just a lot of question marks there that I don't know if you want to deal with at the one tech spot, and I just don't know. I personally don't think he's really much of a fit for Steve Spagnuolo's system for as much as they want to, loop, twist, pull, do that type of stuff. And I think that's a big reason why Danny Shelton never saw the field. So I just feel like every time somebody's like, hey, we need to get Sweat, it's like, well, Danny Shelton didn't see the field, and then they released him. So like, I don't know I don't know how you think this is going to be different.
Yeah, I agree. And then obviously you factor in the, do you want to take the PR hit of taking Tivandre Sweat, excuse me, right after the Rashee Rice incident? And remember too, I mean, the Chiefs dipped into the Texas defensive tackle pool last year, and it wasn't the home run hit with Keandre Coburn. So your mileage may vary once again on all these players. I mean, sometimes they look like they'll get a work, but sometimes they won't. This is just an opportunity for me to bash on the Denver Broncos. Opinions on the Broncos' new unis. Will we ever get an update on our unis? I mean, maybe the Chiefs will introduce an alternate this year. I don't know. I mean, if they did, it would probably be a throwback of some sort. But Clark Hunt has pretty much been dead set every year when Nike comes to them and offers them some opportunities for some new uniforms. And he's like, no, I'm fine with what we got. And after honestly seeing some of the uniforms that have come out here this year, Nick, I'm grateful for that.
Yeah, I like the Broncos' old uniforms. They're really, really cool.
If they wore those 1977 throwbacks every game, I'd be fine with that.
Yeah, I like the ones he had previously, but those ones they got now, those are plain, boring, and no thank you. But hey, good luck to them.
Shane Falco would look great in those in a movie that did not have rights to NFL franchises. But I was going to do this just to drive one of our mutual friends crazy. But if I had time and better skills, I was going to Photoshop Patrick Mahomes into a Chiefs version of the Broncos jersey, where you had Patrick Mahomes with the triangles and everything. And I think if you like the Broncos uniforms and then you saw Patrick Mahomes in it, you would no longer like the Broncos uniforms.
Well, I don't like him either way.
Hey, Des, thank you for being a new member. I truly appreciate you. You always have great questions and everything, and I know we got you in earlier, so appreciate that. Great to see you as a member. Remember, anybody, if you become a member here, you'll always get your questions asked. Well, I'll try and remember to give you shout-outs. Nick is under no obligation to acknowledge you, however, so don't worry about that. I think next in the order, not really a big question for us here in Kansas City, Nick, but ideas on the quarterback draft order.
So I'll just do this in this way, in what order they go versus how talented they are. Because if you're going by how talented, if you're going by order, Caleb Williams is going to go 1. Like, that's pretty much already that one's pretty much clear at this point. 2, you're obviously thinking it's going to be Jaden Daniels to the Commanders because of Cliff Kingsbury, but maybe that's where the surprise gets thrown and really derails people on draft night. 3, I know most people are speculating Drake May to the Patriots, and that the ownership may be involved in making sure that a quarterback happens at that spot, whether it's the right choice or not. because that's what's most marketable to try to get Patriots fans back. And, and then you can talk about, oh, well, we're building for the future. And you get to have fans in the stands for 3 years before they're like, oh, this ain't working out well. If it is the wrong pick. And then at 4, I know that's where the question's coming in right now, to where does Arizona trade with the Vikings potentially for JJ McCarthy? Do they trade with the Broncos for JJ McCarthy? Is there somebody we don't know about right now that they potentially trade with? Because the problem the Broncos and Raiders have, if they want to trade up, Chargers are at 5. So, and then you got the Giants at 6. And is there another quarterback that the Giants are interested in that they want to leapfrog other teams for to get to 4? So right now it seems, unless the Patriots are willing to trade the pick or the Commanders are willing to trade the pick, looks like the party starts at pick 4 right now in terms of trade. So, and then you'll see what happens from there. I personally think the Chargers are going to trade down. I think they want multiple offensive linemen personally. I think this draft, if I'm in the Charger shoes, I want to get the Vikings picks. I want to get both of them. And then, or there's somebody that wants to get a wide receiver, but so that you can get 2 first-round offensive linemen that would fit that scheme and let you really kick off the run game that you're wanting to build, because it's going to be a run power attack with some play action built in. So the reason they were willing to get rid of the wide receivers they did is because they're not going to be throwing the ball as much probably. It's going to be more play action where they'd be more open and they don't necessarily have to be as technically sound overall as they would have been in years past. So if they do get a wide receiver, they do. But I mean, like right now, everybody's got the question, what the heck is Jim Harbaugh going to do? Nobody knows right now because it's a new dawn and a new day with Jim Harbaugh in LA.
Yeah. They don't need a quarterback though. I mean, and that was the great thing. I mean, the Giants are at least, should be reasonably in the market for a quarterback. I mean, this will be the right one. I mean, do they need to take Bo Nix or Michael Penix? I don't know. But that would, once again, I mean, that plays into the, if we're going to Chiefs and we want to trade up scenario. Hey, if 5 quarterbacks or 6 quarterbacks went in the top 10, that would be a dream scenario for the Kansas City Chiefs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, yeah. And I mean, and honestly, you make a great point. I mean, that would scare me actually in the AFC West if that was the deal that the Chargers got done. If they were able to make that and rebuild that offensive line and get 2, get a tackle at 11 and 23 that the Vikings have.
Yeah, or I think the Chargers, if I'm in their shoes, I'm dropping down to get at least 1, if not 2 offensive linemen or 1 offensive lineman and Byron Murphy.
That would be impressive. That would worry me.
They got to start building that defensive line behind Mack and Bosa.
Yeah,
so I mean, I think both sides of that line is where the Chargers are going to be pretty heavy in.
Got to build from the inside out. That's a Jim Harbaugh kind of trade. He's got the quarterback, so they got some targets, so it's not the problem there. But Dez, our newest member, why do most prefer Kingsley over Amaji? God, I did so well earlier. I think I have to say the whole name. It's Kieran Amagaji. Oh gosh,
you had it. No, you had it.
I had it. Kieran Amagaji. There you go.
Thank you very much, Mr. Amagaji.
I'm kind of curious about this because Kingsley Suamadia. Once again, oh my gosh, there's some names on here that the Chiefs draft. I'm gonna have to spend an hour practicing in the mirror, but I'm not a big Kingsley fan. I get why some people are, but I'm just not.
So I think it deals with size and power for Kingsley. And that's like in a Baltimore Ravens scheme, that's perfect. Because Lamar can move around. They have a big power run game. Like, that's perfect for it. And if the Chiefs take Kingsley, I'm not going to be upset. I'm not going to be upset by it and be like, hey, they got a tackle. Andy Heck will make it work. And, as long as he's not Orlando Brown, they'll be fine. So to any tackle, send him a gift basket for, like, always lowering the bar for me. But yeah, I mean, like, with Kieran, like, I mean, he's insanely athletic, and like, I mean, he's just got such quick feet, and with offensive tackles, you want quick feet. Kingsley's a little bit more lumbering, but he's got really powerful punch and hands, and you totally get it. And both of them fit Andy Reid's style. It's just a matter of, do you want somebody that's a little bit more athletic? or do you want somebody that has a stronger punch? And like, so every player's got their traits. Every player's got their good and their bad. It's just a matter of when they're in that room, having Andy Heck look at it like, hey, Andy, what do you think you can fix with this player? What do you think we're stuck with this player? And you get that feedback, and Andy Reid's also going to know as well, because Andy Reid knows football better than anybody. So like, he'll know as well what they need to do or not do. And so, I mean, between those two coaches, that position, that's why I'm not going to get nervous about anybody they take, because we've seen with the coaching staff how good they are at developing most of the players.
Yeah, I am with you. I mean, it's Kingsley's one of those players that, once again, I'm not a big fan of. If the Chiefs take them, I will understand it, and I'll think that they have a plan for it. Just might not be what I would do. I think there's others that could plug and play and drop in and be what they need much quicker and faster and better than him. But Andy Reid and Brett Veach know more about football than I do, so I will absolutely, in this the situation like that, I will absolutely say, you guys know what you're doing. So I'm the amateur here, but I think you probably hit it about why Amagaji is more interesting and intriguing to me than Suamadia is. But
thank you very much, Mr. Amagaji. How are you going to remember it?
There you go. How much longer do we got you, Nick? I know we need to get you out of here.
5 minutes.
5 more minutes. All right. Lightning round.
Yeah, and then I got to get back to safeties and get that wrapped up so I can get that draft board up.
People get that draft board. I can't wait to see the draft board. I always love seeing your draft board every year.
It's going to be like tomorrow night or Thursday morning, the way things are going right now.
Still love it. Jeremy Olsen, how do you feel about the wide receiver Burton in the third? Do you think the Chiefs have him on their board?
I hope they interviewed him and they checked on some things. And if they did that athletically, yes, his tape fits and everything. But as some of the scouts have mentioned in Bob McGinn's article, there are some concerns.
There are some concerns. Yeah, I think. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, he's in obviously that draftable group of receivers that would work. But is he a gamble? Yeah, he's a gamble. And I mean, I guess he holds on to the football, Nick. And that's one thing that, this team has trouble with. So he's got that going for him.
Got 4 minutes, Matt.
Julia, our favorite name. How much do special teams impact the draft board, and how many picks do you see Veach spending on it? I mean, after the 5th round, I mean, that's when, special teams absolutely factors into it. I mean, you might take a guy that's his specialty, but I think the Chiefs are past that to a degree. I mean, that was kind of an early Brett Veach feature was, hey, take a bunch of guys that no matter what, they can play special teams. And just, that's once again, it's a late round feature now, but it's not like this isn't 2018 where you drafted, 6 special teams all-stars. This is 2024, Nick. Brett Veach wants to get productive players out of the 5th and 7th round picks.
Yeah, as I say, that's normally 5th or 7th round, and they may not have those picks in a couple days, so we'll see.
There you go.
2 minutes.
2 minutes. Nick, would you like to see a yellow jersey for a Thursday night game?
No, never. The yellow jersey is ugly. I've seen it. No, thank you.
Rick wants to know, why is nobody talking about Jerry Rice's son? Rice, right? I'm looking at it on the screen right here, as a matter of fact. So that was perfect timing.
Unfortunately, I think part of it is like since he's not his dad 100% athletically and just the way he goes about it, like I think the bar's set so high for that poor kid that, that the fact that he's not at the same level as a Hall of Fame father that won multiple Super Bowls, I think that's why he's under the radar. But then on top of it, you've got so many other wide receivers in this class that are ahead of him in terms of who may be drafted. Like if this is a year where, say, he was like the 6th or 8th best receiver, like people be talking now nonstop being Jerry Rice's son, Jerry Rice's son, Jerry Rice's son. But you don't have that this year, so is what it is on that.
And let's face it, coming out of college, Jerry Rice wasn't Jerry Rice. So it is, maybe. Who knows? But I agree with you. I think that's
1
very,
minute,
very.
Matt.
We got one more question on the board, so we might get you out of here just at the end, unless anybody else has any questions popping in. But Jeremy, Jerzon Newton is his draft crush, putting him next to Jones for the next few years. I've heard nobody mocking him to the Chiefs. Did you have him in one of your mock, Nick? I feel because I know
No.
you and I we talked about him.
We did talk about him on a podcast, but I will not be putting him in a mock. He was the one, you remember, that somebody got upset about whenever I said that he's like that car that's stuck in that gear and can't
stuck in that gear. He is stuck in that gear.
I know a lot of people keep trying to compare him and say he's gonna be the next Warren Sapp and everything, but I mean, there's certain limitations in his athletic ability that I don't think equate to him being Warren Sapp. We'll see. Could be terribly wrong. I could have watched the wrong games, and it happens. Don't worry, people still hold that I didn't have McCole Hardman on my board in 2019 over my head. So we'll see.
Is that something to hold over your head, or
they have for 4 or 5 years, man? They bring it up every time. We do have McCole Hardman on your board. Yeah, because he's green and he looked lost on the field all the time. And then what do you know? For 4 years, he did. Weird.
I mean, Brett finally admitted he regrets not taking DK Metcalf. So I don't think that can be held over your head, Nick.
Well, don't worry. Somebody will find something or find a way. It is what it is.
Well, hey, I just want everybody to know I did send Nick. I texted him this afternoon because I was reminded of his 2013 draft, his mock draft, in which he took Eric Fisher in the first round and Travis Kelce in the second for the Chiefs.
Third, Matt.
Oh, I'm sorry. It was their second pick, but in the third round.
Yeah.
The first pick of the third round.
There you go. Alex Smith was a second round trade.
Yeah. But nailed it.
And then I at least got 2 right last year.
Nailed it.
Felix Ndike Uzama and Keandre Coburn. But I just want you to know the next mock draft I put out is just purely for my enjoyment. It's going to have anarchy in it. It's going to be what I would do in Brett Beach's shoes. People are going to tell me it's unrealistic. It'll never happen. And you're right. But I will have happiness from writing that for 30 minutes, and you will never be able to take that away from me.
There you go.
All right, so I'm gonna close out my part, so you can keep living the dream, Matt. For everybody that's on this, please retweet, please share all the podcasts from this week. Go to Apple, give us 5-star reviews if you want to. If you want to do 1 star, okay, but then that means people won't search us. And expand the show and have more interaction in the comment section for everybody. And we love the user reviews as long as they're positive. So, you can please don't write in the user review, Nick, you're adopted, because that's wrong because I look like my dad. And 2, that's just hurtful. So.
And I want to thank Sharon for the kind words about 41 is the Mike interviews this week. And Sharon, another one of our fun, great members here. So thank you very much, Sharon. Thanks to all the members who chipped in tonight. And Des becoming a new member. I know we had some renewals. I think Casey Harold was one of them. Appreciate you. And Nick said it all the better for me. Everything else about sharing the show, sharing the channel. Appreciate you. We have got a lot of stuff going on this week. So stay tuned. And there will be content on a daily basis on the Chiefs Digest YouTube channel. So make sure you sub and you will get it, including live content all weekend during the draft.
And do you want to tell them the time that Joe Alt's going to be out tomorrow, the one that you texted me?
The one that I texted you?
The one you texted me is what we'll do.
All right, then. Bright and early. Wake up, 6 a.m. Joe Alt will be in your feed, both here on the YouTube channel and in the 41 is the Mike podcast. So cannot wait for that.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
It will be. It was a lot of fun. So, Nick, thank you as always for joining us. Everybody, appreciate all the questions tonight, and we will see you tomorrow back on your feed, and obviously throughout the draft Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So, thank you all very much. Take care. Have a great night.